I'm sure a lot of y'all still have a lot of questions about Robert Saleh getting fired. And on top of that, Aaron Rodgers just finished up his guest appearance on the Pat McAfee show. So let's get you guys some answers from a guy who's been following and been reporting just about everything involving this crazy situation. That's Fox NFL insider Jordan Schultz. Jordan, my man, I know you've been making your rounds this morning, so thanks for taking the time to hop on with us. I guess we'll start with Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee. What do you think of what he said and didn't say on the Pat McAfee show? And is there any cryptic things he may have said that you can clear up for us?
Well, I'm not surprised by what he said because I think going into it, we knew that Aaron was going to say what he said, which is he was really surprised by the firing. I reported yesterday he was blindsided by it, that he had a good relationship with Robert Saleh, and that basically, you know, he was in the facility yesterday doing rehab, and just like everyone else, he finds out about the news, and it sends a shockwave throughout the building. Now, I really don't put stock, Brandon, into the reports or speculation that Aaron had Saleh fired. I just don't. I think what happened was the Jets were 20-36 under his tenure. Obviously, really unsuccessful at the quarterback position. That's not all on him. Of course, they had Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle and Mike White, but they also just never seemed to get the momentum of a legitimate playoff team. It was always the one step forward, two steps back. I think London was an absolute disaster. That game was so ugly. Obviously, Aaron gets hurt. It seems like he avoided a serious injury, but really couldn't have gone worse. And what I don't understand, if I'm a Jet fan, is, or any NFL fan really, is if you're Woody Johnson and you're telling us the day that Saleh was fired yesterday, you're telling us this was the best we could do going into the season. We believed in them. I just don't buy that at all. This offseason was rife with really good coaching prospects. You know, Mike Vrabel was out there, Dan Quinn, Ben Johnson, obviously Belichick, who's not a big fan of the Jets. But there were a lot of really strong candidates that they could have gone after. And to blow it up after 5 games, I know they're 2-3, is strange to me. The whole thing is just an odd yet very, I would say, appropriate look into how the Jets operate.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the 20-36. You mentioned the one step forward, two step back, the London game. There's a lot. So do you think that it ultimately came down to, or this was another factor, that Robert Saleh lost the locker room?
I don't think he lost the locker room. I think one of the problems that Saleh had, and that some of the, I'd say really any coaching staff under this tenure has had with Woody Johnson, is that you have to be incredibly conscientious of how you're being perceived by ownership. It seems like Woody Johnson, it's safe to say, he's a very emotional decision maker, which is what happened yesterday. You know, he's in his office. He just decided, I'm just going to fire Robert Saleh. Him and Christopher Johnson, who actually hired Saleh when Woody didn't hire him, but they go down to Saleh's office on a Tuesday morning and fire the guy. It's unheard of. It's just not how you operate a business. They didn't involve Joe Douglas, the GM. And again, I would go back to what I just said. It's not that Robert Saleh lost the locker room. I just think it's really hard to have success when you're operating under the guise of an owner or an ownership group that is as emotionally decision-making driven as this one is.
And, I mean, with what Woody Johnson said, or excuse me, Ambassador Woody Johnson said on the conference call Tuesday, there's a lot of people who were on it, like myself, that's like, I don't believe a word this guy's saying, especially when he says that he spoke with Aaron Rodgers before firing Saleh, but didn't mention that he was going to fire Saleh. Do you believe that?
I want to believe that because I believe what I was told, that Aaron didn't know it was coming. I want to believe that. I really do. And, you know, I think I would say that is the case. I think you wonder if it was speculated at some point, maybe not necessarily yesterday, Monday night, but perhaps at some point in the recent future, if that was speculated. But I can't report on that. All I can do is report on what I was told, which was that Aaron was blindsided. I'll tell you this. The Jets, if there is a sliver of hope with Jeff Ulbrich, it's that he is very, very well liked in the building. So much so that when the 49ers lost D'Amico Ryans, Brandon, when he went to the Texans to become their head coach, the Niners requested Jeff Ulbrich because they wanted to bring him in potentially to be their DC, and the Jets denied that request. Ulbrich has a lot of respect throughout the league. He was in Atlanta with Mike Shanahan and Mike McDaniel, and Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, and Matt LaFleur. So there is some kind of optimism there with Jeff Ulbrich. It's just that it's very hard to come in to a situation with no experience and try to salvage this season.
All right, so we'll listen to and we'll agree with Ambassador Woody Johnson's statement when he said Ulbrich's tough and he has the respect of the players of the team. I thought that was some sort of dig at Robert Saleh. So thank you for clearing that up. I might have to delete that tweet.
I don't know. Listen, it could have been a dig at Robert Saleh, but I think two things can be true in this scenario. Because like Robert Saleh was not a good NFL coach. I mean, he's as a head coach, he's not. I think he's a good coordinator. But as a head coach, I think the proof is in the pudding. The story had already been written. So the Jets, and that's why I don't understand why you fire him now when you could have had your pick of the litter, per se, before the season.
All right, let's take a look at the offensive side of the ball, if anything could change here, because Ulbrich did say that he will take a hard look at everything on the offensive side of the ball. So from what you know, who's going to be in charge of the offensive game planning and the play calling?
So there's been speculation that Todd Downing, the passing game coordinator, could take over for Nathaniel Hackett, which in essence makes Nathaniel Hackett completely no power in the organization. And I think the only reason Nathaniel Hackett's there is because of his relationship with Aaron. If Aaron were to go, Nathaniel Hackett's gone like that. There's no question about it. I still think Hackett, I would assume that Hackett would continue with play calling, but that Downing could have more influence. But ultimately, it's really important to note that Aaron is still operating at the line of scrimmage in a way that very few quarterbacks can, because he's already he's Aaron Rodgers. And so I think the very few quarterbacks that are able to change plays and dictate what they want to run, like an Aaron Rodgers. And that there's a lot of good that comes with that. I mean, I don't think the ownership loved what Robert Saleh said, by the way, when he talked about having to potentially look at the cadence at the line of scrimmage when they had 3 false starts against Denver. Aaron has been the greatest free play quarterback in history, 18 touchdowns. So that's one of his superpowers. So whether or not Hackett or Downing are calling plays, it's not immaterial to me, but I still think at the end of the day, Aaron's going to dictate what he wants, and there's a lot of good that comes with that.
All right, you got an interim head coach, a potential lame duck offensive coordinator. Is there anything else we're missing here? Should Jets fans be looking at the glass half full or half empty when it comes to the rest of the season?
I mean, okay, so I talked about Ulbrich and some of the positive elements that he brings to the table. If they win Monday night, Brandon, they're in first place.
Yep.
As poorly as things have gone, they're in first place with a win on Monday Night Football. If they lose, then they're 2-4. It feels like Monday night is the most important Jet. It always feels like every week with the Jets is like the most important game, but it feels like Monday night might be the most important game. And I think also I would say that given the amount of how much Aaron missed, at some point you have to believe that he's going to find more of a rhythm, because there have been flashes. I thought last week the connection he had with Garrett Wilson was great. I think they still are figuring out what to do on the offensive line. They've had Fashanu. They're going to have Morgan Moses back. They obviously had a catastrophic injury with Jermaine Johnson. So they're still, to me, this is still a really good defense and an offense that has the upside. And Ulbrich being a defensive guy, I would imagine the defense could potentially take another step with a fresh voice at the helm. But that division is very winnable. I mean, Buffalo has lost 2 straight and looked really bad. Miami doesn't have Tua, and New England is a mess. So there's a lot of optimism in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, as players, you gotta have one of those players only meetings and take accountability. Like Robert Saleh wasn't dropping balls. Robert Saleh wasn't having penalties and fumbling the ball. So that's just one of those things where I think the players, this could be something that they band together and just kind of take accountability and save the season per se. So Jordan, man, you've been absolutely killing it, man. Thanks for taking time out your busy day to hop on with us and clear all this up.
Hey, I'm sure there'll be many more of these conversations throughout the rest of the season. Thanks, Brandon.